All right, so welcome back to another workshop session, and this session is going to be about an introduction to cloud with Azure from Microsoft. So what are we going to talk about today? What we are going to talk basically regarding what the cloud is, how exactly you're going to use cloud computing, how we use cloud computing on a regular basis, what are the services provided by, what are the few of the what are few of the services provided by Azure, okay, and how we can actually use Azure for our particular purposes. So we'll take a look at one of the examples which we have and see how exactly it works for us, and we'll go ahead with that. All right. So let's start talking about what cloud computing is. So cloud computing basically is, if you take a look at Wikipedia, you'll get a good definition. But from my perspective, it's more about having pay as you go, server anytime, anywhere, as such. Okay, so you've got entire. So let me do one thing. Okay, let me open up something for you guys over here. So just open up a online collaboration app. Okay, so think about this. Okay, you've got something like this, a box, okay, which is probably something which contains, so basically a computer. Okay, so you've got your compute, that is your CPU, and then you've got your HDD, okay, that is your storage, and then you've got your processors, okay. So all these things come under a certain computer as such, okay, or even as a matter of fact, it could come under a server. Okay, now how exactly does that translate into being in the cloud? Okay, now when it comes to a computer or a server as such, okay, so let's say server, these are always local to you, as in they are present to you locally. It is available to you locally. They would have certain configurations, and they would have a certain IP. Okay, if you're connected to the internet, they would have a certain IP, which allows you to connect to the internet as such. Okay, which allows you to talk to other computers as such. But regardless, you wouldn't want to give access to your computer to anyone else. Okay, just like that. Okay, now when it comes to cloud computing, what's the actual use case? What's the use of having cloud computing, and what is it all about? So let's probably do this. How does it translate into cloud computing? Okay, so what I'm going to do is, so I'm just going to do this. Now think of this particular server, okay, or think of this particular computer being split, okay, into a smaller piece. Okay, or think of it in this way, that I don't use this computer all the time. Okay, I use it maybe once a day or twice a day or something like that, and at night I go to sleep, it's left left standing over there, and I can't make use of its resources to the fullest as such. So what can I do with it? So that's basically the thought behind Amazon, the thought behind Azure, and all of these as such. So what can I do with my extra what do you say, server space, my extra processes, my extra compute resources, all of these? So what you can do is, so what you can actually do is split it into smaller portions which people can access anytime, anywhere. Okay, think of this as saying I have maybe 100 GB, no, 100 GB hard drive. Okay, I've got 4 processors on this. Okay, and so as simple as that. Okay, I'll make it this way, out of which at a particular time during the day, I don't have, I don't use any of this stuff. Okay, I probably have used around, say, 20 GB of this locally for myself. So the thought behind cloud is, what they've done is they've simply gone here and found a way to split this into, say, okay, say this is me. This is someone else. Okay, and someone else, something like this. Okay, these are 4 people who want to make use of these resources. Okay, and you are agreeing to use these resources. So what happens is that agreeing to give these resources. So what happens is that you have some sort of translation mechanism over here. So typically there's a virtualization system underneath. There's a virtualization software. So there are different ones. There's something like LXC, and then you've got something like, if you've taken a look, you might see that VirtualBox has a similar system over there. Then you could also think of something known as KVM. Okay, so these are various virtualization. These are typically known as hypervisors. Okay, so these break it down. These allow to break down the host system into guest systems as such. Okay, so this would be your host, and these would be your guests. Okay, so you divide these particular pieces. Okay, and then you have, say, 1 GB, sorry, 20 gigs of HDD over here, 20 gigs here, maybe 10 gigs here, and maybe 15 gigs here. Okay, they're split accordingly, as per what you want as such. Okay, and you have like one processor here, and one over here. Okay, so it gets split accordingly, and then you are able to use any of these particular systems as per what you want. Okay, there are a whole lot more intricacies which we won't dip into, but that's the basic idea as such. Okay, now Azure, Amazon have actually managed to do that. So they've got huge server farms distributed across the world as such. Okay, in AWS, so you would have like probably a region like this. Okay, so I'll give you a basic understanding. So you'll have probably different regions. Say I've got America, I've got Europe, and I've got Asia. Okay, and then I've got like within that I've got like smaller ones in different locations. So I would say something like, just a second. So you've got something like, say, Oregon, and you've got Ohio, and something like Virginia. Okay, and in Europe you probably have like Frankfurt, and maybe somewhere in Ireland. Okay, and Asia, you've got Singapore, Mumbai as such. So you'll have like these server farms distributed across different locations as such, which are connected by huge cables, by network, completely accessible to their entire system as such. And they've got all these servers sitting there. They've got these virtualization software which allow you to actually do this particular process from a public system as such. So you'll be sitting on your laptop, you access their dashboard, and you tell, I want a server in Oregon of this particular size, and which needs to be of so and so with so and so processors, and I want to be able to use that and access it, for which I will pay so and so amount, maybe $0.1 per hour of use as such, which gives you a little bit more flexibility, saying that I don't need to access, or I don't need to have my own server. I can simply rent out a server on a use basis as such, and I can simply switch off the server if I'm not using it, which means I don't need to pay certain costs. Now, what exactly more does it comprise? Is it just this much? So actually, no, it's much more than that. Now, when it comes to having your applications, hosted on any of these servers, you could have a single server. You could have multiple servers. Okay, it allows you this kind of system allows you, say, I have like an application which does something, and I have it sitting, say, in Europe, Frankfurt. So I'll probably have a system built like this. I can build what is known as a highly available system. Okay, so how does that happen? So what happens is that this is a very simple use case. So we'll have what is known as a load balancer and virtual machine 1 and virtual machine 2. So we will use certain application softwares like Nginx and stuff like that to make sure my application is running and available and not duplicated, and to not collide with each other. So I'd probably have my Flask application, or maybe / node application running over here. Again, Flask / node. And over here, this is the load balancer is usually given by AWS or Amazon. It can also be used by you yourself. Okay, you can create your own on a separate VM, so that's up to you. But typically, you use what they have there. Okay, so which might probably have something like Nginx. So you can go and find out more about Nginx. So it's basically it basically allows you to create high availability of your application as such. So this lies within the load balancer. Okay, and then you have like a communication between this, like this. Okay, and this from here, this goes to the user. Okay, your item, your application is available to the user. Now what happens here, the best part here is, say, for one of the use cases I can give you is, because of like say a maintenance happening on one of these VMs. So typically what would happen is, if you have your local system, okay, you need to, and you have made your application available to someone on the web or something like that, and you need to do maintenance of your system, you would actually have to stop your system for a certain amount of time, upgrade it, maintain it, and then get it back online for this person. But in this case, what happens is you can configure it in such a way that one VM, okay, does not have to be in the same maintenance mode as a second VM. So you can leave this one for maintenance while this is still serving your application, or you can leave this for maintenance while this is serving your application, and it will still be available to the user, which is one of the best known use cases. So additionally, what more is available? Okay, what more is served? So basically, to the user, this is not it. So I would say one fine day, I've got 10 users, accessing this application, and I would say, this VM is all right. It's not getting loaded. Okay, say this happens on Monday, maybe. Okay, on Tuesday, it goes to 50 users. Okay, and then you already know that your application or your system, okay, can support a maximum of 70 users. But all of a sudden, there is a spike of users happening, and say that happens on Wednesday, where you suddenly get around 100 users. Okay, which is definitely going to give you something like a 500 error or a 404 or something like that, which lets your entire system crash, okay, if you've not configured it properly. But with cloud computing, we can make it sure that your system, okay, is scaled. Okay, it is scaled, and because it is scaled, what happens is that you can end up having another VM over here which contains the same application connected to this load balancer, which is typically known as auto scaling. You can configure auto scaling, or you can do it, do it manually as well. Okay, you can do it manually, where you can configure the scaling as such. Okay, basically this is known as scale out. Okay, and when you want, so when the amount of consumption or the number of users drop below a certain level, the amount of resource consumption reduces, then you can make sure that this particular additional server which has come up can be what do you say, basically going down. Okay, and the amount of consumption goes down, which is basically known as scale in. That way you only pay for the resources that you have consumed and which you're using. So this is your typical, sorry, this is your typical usage. Okay, and then you've got this additional thing which gets scaled. So in that way you have what is known as both a scaled and available system. Okay, both a scaled and available system. So what I have given you so far is basically one of the most basic things as such. It's some of the most basic stuff. So let's go now, understanding this basic stuff. Okay, let's look into Azure and how it actually helps us as such. Set up some application for our purpose as such. Okay, I'll show you how to create a VM on Azure. Okay, so first thing first. Okay, go to azure.microsoft.com. Okay, and you'll come across a site. You'll need to register with either a credit card or a debit card. So what you see over here is you'll see that you can start for free. Okay, there are quite a lot of items which is available for free. Okay, for about a year. Some things are available for a year. Some things are available for about 30 days to be tested out. So you see 12 months of free services, more than 25 always free services, so that stuff like their object storage or the blob storage is like available for like what do you say, so is available free throughout to a certain extent. Like 5 GB is like quite free. Okay, and then they give you like about 150 pounds, which is roughly 170 euros of credit, with which you can explore Azure, as in other services within Azure. So if you, I don't know if it shows it here. So yeah, you can see over here what exactly is available. So you see what are the free products for 12 months. You see all these particular products are free for 12 months. So what are we going to do is we are going to use this particular thing. So we'll use like one B1S VM, okay, with 750 hours for free. So 750 hours is basically more than 25 hours as such per day. Okay, so use this particular thing and on Linux to create a particular VM for ourselves. And there are a whole lot of other stuff which we can actually use to do a whole lot more, which we'll learn in the upcoming days. And then these are like products which are like always free, no matter what. So you have like 5 GB of the Cosmos DB. Then you've got the AKS, you've got the Azure DevOps, you've got load balancers with publicly load balanced IP, and you've got containers. I'll tell you, these containers are really good to to be used when it comes to using your applications. You've got a whole lot of stuff which you can actually use. You can actually do a whole lot more. And this is one of the things, Visual Studio Code, something which Microsoft has developed. Okay, and it's, from my perspective, is one of the best IDEs around. It's a lightweight IDE where you can add in like a whole lot of plugins which connect to GitHub, which allow you to do pairing and a whole lot more. So trust me, it's worth the effort, getting into these things as such. Okay, so that being said, once you register for this particular service, once you've added your information, you'll need to make sure that your card is accepted. They don't charge heavily for your first thing, maybe around if it is in rupees, maybe around 50 rupees, and it is credited back to you. And if it's in euro, maybe around 0.01 to 1 euro, and then that is also credited back to you. So you have no issues there. Okay. And once you do that, okay, you just go to your account. Okay, so earlier yesterday I had already gone and created my own server as such. Okay, which I'll definitely go ahead and destroy because I no longer need to use that. Okay, so now what we will do is we will do the same thing over here. Okay, so go to the portal. So you have to go to the Azure portal. Okay, don't so right now we don't want to bother with this. So you'll come across a portal like this. Okay, now our chief concern is to, what do you say, create a particular VM as such. Okay, so you'll see that you come across these services, you have this virtual machine. Okay, so we'll start with creating a virtual machine. So if you see, I'd created this VM over here. I could probably open it in a new tab. Let's see what exactly there is within this. So overview, you'll see, this has been done, and I can just go ahead and simply delete it, when I need it, whenever I need it. So you see, all these particulars. You see the CPU consumption, network, disk bytes, a whole lot of monitoring is already set up in this particular case. And I'll show you how exactly to do that for yourself. Okay, you go here, create a new machine. Okay, let's go and see how it actually works. So since you're on the free trial version, we'll go ahead and try to use whatever is there. So it actually takes you through a wizard. We are not going to do anything programmatically right now, simply using the wizard as such. Okay, so it tells create a resource group. Okay, a resource group, so as it says, is a collection of resources that share the same life cycle, permissions, and policies. So it's important that you have something like this in most cases, because you will want to probably create certain resources with the same life cycle and delete them as well, and they come under one single wing as such. Okay, that way when you delete a particular resource, it it goes ahead and deletes everything, and you'll definitely get request saying that do you want to delete it or do you want to keep it as such. Okay, so you go here. So I had already created test as one of the resource groups as such. I'll create another one called, say, test2. So you see a resource group with the same name has already exists in the same selected subscription. So test2, let's go ahead and do that. You want to give a virtual machine name, so I'll call it say my application, something like that. Okay, no big deal. So you can also select various regions. So this is one of the typical things which you do. Okay, if you think from a more architectural perspective, and you think that your users are going to use your application more in your particular region. Okay, you've got across various regions over here. So you've got Asia, you've got you've got Australia. Sorry, you've got Asia, you've got Europe, you've got the US, all these regions as such. So I would say more of my users, if I say more of my users come from West Europe, I would select that particular application, because what happens is that through the internet, when a person accesses your application, it happens that, the closer your application or your server is to the user, the faster, that is, the latency is lower, or your application is accessed more faster as such, which is a great thing to have when it comes to at an architectural level. So let's go with this. So here you'll see that there's an option called availability options. Okay, so no infrastructure redundancy required. So this is the stuff which I talked about earlier. Okay, so if you want to make your application more available, then you need redundancy. But in our case right now, since we are just setting up a system just for a test, we are going to have no infrastructure redundancy. You've got different OS types which you can use depending on your application. I pretty much use Ubuntu server for my application, one of the most easily used, one of the most easily accessible as well. So I go with that. So then you've got something known as Azure Spot. What happens is that sometimes applications like you've got machine learning applications, and they need a lot of compute resources as such. In that particular case, using these Spot instances, so it's not necessary that you want to have your computation happening right here right now. So you have to create your application in such a way that it can access those resources, compute on batches, and then it can just let it go. So in that case, you can reduce your cost by using what is known as the Azure Spot instance. So right now, not necessary again, and the size. Okay, so you can see, you can say you want to change the size, you've got different ones. So if you saw earlier, I'd said that, the B1S, okay, this one, okay, is free for you as such. Okay, free for you for up to 750 hours per month. Okay, so we'll use this selected. So you see 1 vCPU, 1 RAM of, sorry, 1 GB, 2 data disks with this much IOPS. You've got 4 GB of storage and quite a lot of disk support as well. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay. Next, you go here, and it says that you need to set up an SSH key. Okay, so either you can do it via SSH, or you can do it via password. So you need to give a username and password. I typically use the SSH. It's much, it's a little bit more safer to use the SSH option, because you have your own keys. You can make sure that no one accesses it, typically. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how exactly we do that. So you'll see username, the administrator username. So I'll call it Ubuntu. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and create an SSH key. Okay, so earlier yesterday I had created an SSH key. Okay, and how you create is simply running this command. So if you're on Mac OS or on Linux, you can simply create this command by doing this SSH keygen -t RSA, and it'll basically create the key. So on something like Windows, you'll have to create your own, what do you say? You'll have to use putty or puttygen, where you'll be able to create it, but I won't be able to show it to you right now. So this is how you create it on Mac. So I do this. So it tells, I need to say, it'll generate this RSA key pair. It always comes as a public-private key pair, and I need an RSA key pair. So enter the file in which to save the key. So it says user. So this is the user. What is the default? So I will do it this way. Okay, and I will call mine as RSA. VM2. Okay, something like this. Sorry. VM2. Enter passphrase, so you can make it much more secure by entering a passphrase. I tell no, again I tell no, and I create this particular, what do you say, passphrase as such. Okay, now it'll tell you, provide the RSA public key in a single line format as such. Okay, starting with SSH RSA. So I'll show you this particular thing. Sorry, just a second. So ID. So you have the public key generated and the private key. So we want the public one. Okay, I'm just going to copy this stuff up over here and just paste it over here. Okay, so once I do this, public inbound ports, I want to, what do you say, be able to access my machine, which means I'll be using the SSH2. Okay, so I do this. 30 gigs of RAM, sorry, 30 gigs of disk space, premium SSD, and what do you say, encryption type, we'll keep it as the platform managed. That is, the Azure side will manage it. So if you want to do your own management of the, what do you say, encryption, you can have a customer managed one. We don't want that. And then you can add additional disks if you need. Okay, so use managed disks, not necessary. Use ephemeral, nothing necessary. Over here, you need to be connected to one of the virtual networks over here. So it creates what is known as test2 VNet, okay, which we had from our initial resource group. It'll give it a public IP called my application IP. There's a default subnet. So when I talk about subnets, so it depends on which particular availability zone that it belongs to. Okay, which particular what do you say, region, not region, which particular state, in which particular data center it belongs to. So mine belongs to US West, no, sorry, Europe West as such as of now. I've not added any additional things. So if you see, subnet is a range of IP addresses in your virtual network, which can be used to isolate virtual machine. So from one subnet to the other subnet, you won't be able to easily talk to each other. So you can make it happen, but that's for later. Okay. So no load balancing. So we are not having multiple items. So no load balancing. So we'll see that, we want to create this. So diagnostics, storage account. So this, what happens is that, your, your system diagnostics goes into this particular storage account. So once you create it, it'll automatically go into that. Okay. So like the monitoring of your CPU resources, your HDD resources, all of these things. So enable backup, none of these are required as of now. Okay, go here. So then you've got something interesting. Okay, you've got this cloud init. Okay, where you can set up certain, pre-launch scripts as such. For example, I want to install Git. So apt install Git. Okay, -y, something like this. I could put it in here, but so since I don't want it right now, we're not going to do any of the application level stuff right now. We'll do it sometime later. And then we'll go down. Let's take a look at this. So you've got the host group, no host group found. We don't have. So in case you want dedicated hosts. So this happens. So typically what happens is that by default, your resources go into a shared system as such. You will have one particular rack in the in the data center, where you will have a particular server within which you will have your your VM. But in case you want dedicated hosts, you want to say that I want to have a physical server to myself within which I'll have my VMs, then you can use this dedicated host option. And there it'll probably be more secure. And at a at a physical level, it'll be much more a little bit more expensive as well. So that's not something which we want as of now. Proximity placement groups allow you to, have the Azure resources as physically closer together in the same region. So when you want your system, your VMs to talk to each other, you want to make sure that you have something like this as well. You want to be having a faster system sometimes. So now, sometimes what happens is that you want to be able to, uh, tag your systems, okay? So I would call this name as my app, okay? Which allows you to create something like this. So now it started creating this. So it says validation passed, whatever is necessary. So you get to see these details. So 0.010 euro per hour. Okay, you can see different different resources have different costs as well. So you can go down. Okay, and then you go here and create this. Okay, and that would start creating your your deployment. So your server. So for that, we'll need to wait for some time. Okay, and once it's created, we will log into that particular system. So that'll take a few maybe a few minutes. So you see, it goes through the process of checking through each and every one of these things. So it will see that this particular interface is created, which is the network, the storage, the virtual networks, public IPs. All of these are created as such. Okay, so let's wait for it for a couple of minutes. So you can once the video is up, you can make sure that you can forward through this part in case you're like bored waiting for it as such. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes. So at this point of time, you'll see that the underlying host, host is trying to create this particular resource, all these resources as such. So even if you use AWS, it'll follow somewhat similar approach as well. Okay, so there, your deployment has succeeded. You'll see that you have this go to resource button and the pin to resource, pin to dashboard. So let's do this. Go to the resource. Okay, it'll show you that particular resource. You'll see that it has created this particular application. Okay, it's not application, the server as such, which is called my app. Now, what do I want to do? I simply want to connect to it. So there you'll have this connect button. So let me see what exactly are the options. So you've got SSH, RDP, and Bastion. So SSH is basically what we need, because that's how we how we want to log in. The RDP is typically for Windows instances where you'll need the remote desktop option as such. Okay. Now let's see what exactly comes up when we do SSH. It tells, open the client of your choice, put your other clients, ensure that you have read-only access to the private key. So we have to make sure that we've got only read-only access, no write access. Okay, so we'll go here and we'll change it to this. Okay, and since our private key is within this particular location, so IDVM2. Okay, so we modify the the permissions for that, and then it says you have to have this location, provide a part to your SSH key. Okay, either you do it here or we do it here, and we simply run this particular command. Okay, SSH -I, you give your private key, and Ubuntu @ this particular IP. That's the public IP of your machine. Okay, so we'll do this. We'll do this. Okay, and we hit enter. So it'll check for the authenticity. Okay, and my local system can't establish it, so it asks you for a couple of things. I tell yes, I want to add it to my system, and do this. Let's see what happens. Okay, there. So we have our server ready and available over here as such. Okay, so that's how you basically create your entire server on Azure. So in the next in the next workshop, what we'll do is we'll see how exactly to install a particular application, have it running.